Palme d'Or, one of the most prestigious honors in film. The Cannes Film Festival's top prize is easily among the most coveted and obsessed over awards in all of art, and for a good reason. It's been given to some of the best films ever made, and as a result, its winner commands a special place in my watch list every year. I mean, I leapt at the opportunity to watch and review last year's winner, Shoplifters, link in the card, wink wink, shameless plug, and this year's winner, Parasite, was no different. Though its director, a Mr. Bong Joon-Ho, may need an introduction for some of you. Bong is what we like to call eccentric. You can say a lot about Bong Joon-Ho's films, but they sure as shit ain't boring. Some might even call that a fault of his. He certainly is one of a kind, but as a result, he's never been reserved in his wackiness either. He certainly has his share of odd moments.
What happens if the engine stops? We all freeze and die.
He's the kind of auteur that's always been loved by film buffs and critics alike, never quite had the push to get him beyond cult status. That's not to say he's sloppy or hasn't shown his level of skill necessarily. Mother, the one without the exclamation point, is an excellent little revenge thriller. And Memories of Murder is a near-perfect favorite of mine, but he never quite hit the status of a favorite filmmaker for many, including myself. Well, that was until Parasite came out. Parasite is a film that does so much so right, I don't even know where to start. I guess let's start with Bong himself. This is easily his most tightly directed film ever. I don't think there's a single out-of-place shot. It's the perfect mix of all the elements of his style. It manages to both be reserved enough to not go too over the top or muddle the point, but it's never too simplistic and bland either. It's exciting and fluid when it needs to be, but never overdoes it. It's able to have some silent, reflective moments despite still being lively. Speaking of which, as usual, Bong has made a film that straddles the line between wildly different tones and shifts between them. It's actually probably Bong's most iconic writing quirk. See, despite Bong rarely making an out-and-out comedy, he always manages to weave a bit of comedy into his films. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But it's a type of tonal mismatch that is so difficult to balance right simply because comedy naturally clashes with the dark subject matter Bong tends to weigh in on. Parasite manages to pull off these diametrically opposed ideas with one simple trick. Instead of being a thriller with random comedy sprinkled in, or a comedy with random thriller elements sprinkled in, it's instead a film that slowly changes its genre as the plot progresses. It may start off as a screwball comedy drama, but as it goes on, the stakes ramp up, it becomes much more of a nail-biting thriller with some deep psychological questions. Transition is subtle and smooth and never drastic. It's just a natural escalation of stakes and emotion. It also helps that it never fully becomes out and out exclusively comedic or tense, but maintains a large variety of genre elements to keep a more balanced style for the film. It's the perfect example of what Bong's tonal management is like at its best. It manages to be so balanced and yet refreshing in its uniqueness. It's just so brilliant. This is all, of course, aided by some incredible performances as well. The ensemble here is just so well-rounded. The world feels so genuine, and even big characters are dynamic and memorable in their movements and design. It's so naturalistic and vivid that never do I doubt the conviction of anyone involved. It really is so incredibly good that I find it hard to single out anybody. Well, except for one. King Ho's song. It's not surprising he's in this film. He's Bong's main man. He's been in all but 3 of Bong's films, with the most notable performance of his being in Memories of Murder, where he gave one of the best performances of the decade. It's the type of performance that will put you in the history books, but also is extremely hard to repeat in terms of quality, and in fact one I wasn't sure if he'd ever be able to match. And yet, here, he comes extremely close. A lot of it comes down to his eyes. They show this determination regardless of his actions, a sort of desire to do what's right for his family no matter what. It's vivid and it tells so much of the inner battle we see going on inside his head as the second half develops. It's easily one of my favorite performances of the year. It's just so spectacular. But, finally, no review of this film would be complete without touching on its plot, easily the most widely discussed, praised, and analyzed part of the film. And for a good reason, too. This film is, in a lot of aspects, one of the greatest critiques of classism and capitalism I've ever seen. Bong Joon-Ho has admittedly never been one to shy away from politics in the past. After all, he's the same guy to make 2 different films about animal rights, as well as Snowpiercer, which was an entirely different film about classism and capitalism. It's just that Snowpiercer was, let's just say, a bit less clever about it.
We all freeze and die.
See, in contrast to Snowpiercer, Parasite works specifically because of the reality of the situation it shows. There's an authenticity to what's going on here. People have had to do desperate things to survive poverty before, and the feelings of desperation and need to succeed shown by the main family aren't too dissimilar from the
entrepreneurial spirit
often marketed to most poor Americans by the capitalist system. There's much more of a subtle understanding to the world around our characters. It's the subtle things that really make this critique. When we discuss poverty in real life, you don't notice little things like how much our selfishness for our own safety seems to increase when it involves people worse off than us, until a film like this lays it out. Or how easy it is to game the system. It's easy to say greed is bad, but how often are we shown all the little human consequences of why it's bad? I think what makes Parasite so special is really just how human it feels. It doesn't try to preach or lie or frame itself in exaggerations. It isn't ashamed of its humanity, and it wants to speak it louder than anything. It has this perplexing mix of feeling both insanely authentic, like it simply came to be as a byproduct of its environment, and yet approached with a perfect, steady hand that manages to hit all the right points. It's just breathtaking in its craft. Bong Joon-Ho has truly made a masterpiece, a candid shot of humanity in the modern age of capitalism, and a journey through the system's most successful and most painful ends. And it's one that I hope everyone gets a chance to see. And while some may fear that its Korean roots may alienate them from understanding it, I would like to quote Bong Joon-Ho, who said that while the film may be about Korea specifically, we all live in the same country now, that of capitalism. Bong Joon-Ho's Parasite gets a 10 out of 10.